will there be larger vehicles in the Terrapin available later, like trucks? Yes, of the 4 vehicles that are completed, 2 of them are significantly larger than the Terrapin. One of them is a bit smaller, being the Click Beetle, which I'm sure longtime fans will have already seen the concept art of ages ago. There's 2 vehicles significantly larger than the Terrapin. There's the Karkanda, which will be coming out after the Terrapin, which is a personnel transport. So the Terrapin, one of its major weaknesses is it only can fit one person, the driver. The Karkanda will be able to fit far more people for larger mining operations and also for just traversing the environment. And with that additional space to fit people, you can also use it to transport resources quite well. And then after that, we have the Shire, which is basically like the sci-fi monster truck version of a semi truck, and that is purely designed for mass transportation of resources, items, components, other vehicles, even stuff like that. Whereas the Karkanda is very large, um, kind of good at everything involving moving around, but not a master at any of them. The Shire sacrifices off-road capabilities a bit for mass, super efficient transport of materials.
So are we saying that for some of the vehicles, some of the future vehicles, we might even need to build roads?
Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, the construction of roads is a feature that we are working on now. Uh, it's an interestingly challenging one because we want to follow a similar system to our current building system, which allows we give the player a few pieces and they're allowed to do a lot of unique and interesting things with those pieces. So coming up with a way to follow that same philosophy with roads is an interesting design challenge. Over the next couple months, you'll probably see some initial prototypes of that in the game that people can start giving feedback on.
Okay. Okay. There is another group of questions related to this. So people asking about the functions of the vehicle apart from the scouting, like driving and exploring. So definitely we can mention charging function, which will be embedded. So depends on a vehicle type. Yeah, there will be a different charging time. Anything else to highlight from those additional
Well,
functions?
I think there's also an important thing we should be talking about how in these early stages before the full Mars 4 play to earn game is um, fully up and running, we will be allowing players to use their vehicles in the website, in the MCC, to be able to start earning a profit now and start interacting with the lands that they own and so forth. Because as people know, like the full game itself is a massive project. It's going to take us a while to get to that final stage where everything is done and everyone's profiting. Um, Everyone's being able to play and profit and do those things in the full 3D game. So we'll be integrating some functionality into the MCC, the Mars Control Center, where people can use their vehicles to begin unlocking resources on their lands and discovering resources on their lands, and also extracting some of those resources. So that's going to be in a way, I guess we could say that we're approaching the investor and the gamer at the same time through different systems. The gamers will be able to play with the vehicles immediately, drive them around, have fun in the game with them, and while we're still merging the fun and the profit and economy into one single experience, you'll still be able to have both of them.
Okay, I believe that, yeah, that answers quite in depth. So you mentioned that players will be able to drive them straight away in the game. So when is that planned? Of course, we don't need
I think
from
that's
you
yeah.
full game.
The players will be able to drive the vehicles in game by the end of this month is our current goal. As you can see, like they're already mostly working. There's just like right now we're doing more back end work to make sure that if you purchase and own a vehicle, Like it shows up in your inventory in the game, and you get to deploy it and those things. More of those kind of technical accounting, if you will. Uh,
Hmm.
so although I guess in that case it won't be right away, it may be a week or two after the initial sale. But in very soon, in a couple of weeks, you'll be able to be driving them around in game.
Yeah, guys, that was one of the discussions we kept having with Nick. Do we sacrifice one part of the development, or for you to bring the capability to drive in the game? Related questions, a round of questions was about the vehicles wearing down, spare parts. So, is there some sort of a decay? Do we need to hide them from storms? The guys are saying, straight away worried about the garages. Do they need to build, garages with 5 locks, not to affect that by radiation and so on. So yeah. So how quickly vehicles will wear down, and if these are planned in the mechanics?
Yes,
Uh,
we will be adding in vehicle durability, and vehicles will be able to get damaged by storms, by weather, by crashing, and stuff like that. However, in the very first version, we won't have that. The first, as the philosophy that all of the long-term followers of the project know, the first step is to get the mechanics in-game into the player's hand as quickly as possible, get people playing, and let's get the vehicles as fun as we can, as fast as we can. And then once they're at a point where everyone is happy with the way they work and we're all enjoying them, then we can start expanding on those additional layers into the system. And that's where we'll start adding stuff like the damage to vehicles, vehicle repair, durability, and that's not exclusively a vehicle feature. Like before we add any kind of vehicle weather damage, we also need to expand the building system to support stuff like garage doors and those kinds of things. So it's going to be a process of introducing a whole new pipeline of functionality into the game. Um, and that's a bit further down the line of our priorities because we want to have some time for everyone to be playing with the vehicles as they are, and tweaking their functionality in terms of how they're used uh, first. And then once we have a couple months of that feedback, then and a couple months of us tweaking and polishing based on that feedback, then we'll start development on that pipeline. The next system that will be added into the game will be the farming system, and then soon after that, the power system, like the power grids and generators and wiring and all that stuff. As those, like just like vehicles, as I explained, the first step of vehicles is to get play testing and feedback, and then we'll add more functionality. Now we're at the point where we've had enough play testing and feedback on the building system to have a pretty good idea of what people like, what people don't like, and now we're ready to start adding some additional functionality to that.